reason, and it could be thank you. It could be the brain fog or something, I don't know. But for some reason, I got Doug's thing and printed it out, but I don't remember seeing an agenda for this meeting. But so I'm going to just use a regular one. I don't know whether you sent it or not, but
I did. I can pull it up.
Yeah, nor do I remember seeing the minutes from the last meeting, but
I found the minutes.
I'll be happy to send the minutes around again if you'd like.
Hey, Sue.
Good morning.
I probably
Sue.
did get them at
How are
some
you?
point and just have lost it. So let's adjourn the meeting. Yeah, adjourn. Let's call to order the meeting. Let's adjourn.
Seconded.
There you go. And ask if anybody has any changes on those minutes, which I'm sure I read, but can't remember, frankly. So I think
I'll move that we accept them. I didn't
Oh,
see
okay, good.
anything
Good. Then
untoward.
I think we're all in favor of that. And at some point I will find my printed copy. I just for some reason can't locate it now.
The printed,
So,
the July strategic planning draft minutes were sent around on July 12th. If you need to.
July 12th. I will. Well,
Didn't
that'll
look
help
far
me
enough
find them
back.
in my files because I can never print them from the county. I have to send them to my own email, which I do and did for this, but for some reason I couldn't locate them. So, okay. I'm sure that after approval of minutes, now what we want to do is review what Doug sent around and hear about how we're going to do whatever the next step is, which is hopefully getting us an actual set of these available to present to the board in, you think, September, Jessica, or you think we have to wait till October? Probably October.
Let's see what kind of feedback that you all have.
Got
If
it.
there's a lot
Okay.
of it needs to be incorporated, it might take a
Okay.
little longer. But I'll go
Okay.
ahead
Thank
and
you.
share my screen. Is this large enough
Excellent.
for everyone?
Okay, it is
Perfect.
for me, and I've got it in paper too. So, thank you. Okay, Doug, it's yours.
Okay, great. So what we've got here is all 5 of our approved goals with the proposed objectives that the staff committee came up with at our last meeting, which was end of July. I'm going to say the 27th, just right off the bat.
22nd,
22nd, thank you.
I believe.
No,
No, sorry, the 11th.
Oh,
Well, this is the
Oh,
staff
your
meeting
meeting,
he's talking
sorry.
about. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
talking
mine.
about his
so
Okay.
personal meeting.
You know what? I'm going to say ours was the 19th because it was a Tuesday. So we
Okay.
actually met face to face for the first time, which was kind of fun.
Oh, that's neat.
We had a big exercise regarding our objectives. We talked about how many each goal should have, and basically there is no perfect number. So we figure between 2 and 5, and the selections you have here range from 1 to 5, some as few as 3. So you can choose 2, 3, 4, 5, whichever you guys prefer. Or you can send us back to the
Okay.
drawing board, and that's fine too.
Okay.
So our first goal there is to expand equitable access to library services.
Mhm.
The staff committee crafted and discussed 13 possible objectives for this goal.
Wow.
3 of those were then considered for inclusion under a different goal other than the first one here. Discussion resulted in 5 of these objectives being edited and then reconsidered, and 2 of them being edited multiple times.
Mhm.
And after review, after we reviewed all the initial options and our additional, we crafted an additional one as well to consider. And the 5 that you see listed there are the ones that received the most support among the staff committee members.
Okay. Well, I'll say
Objective
I-
1 there is actually a current objective in our
Mhm.
current strategic plan, as is objective 2, only it's been edited from what's
Mhm.
currently there.
Mhm. I'll just say I like all 5. The 4th one was the only one I wondered about because it says be recognized as, but actually that's, I think, important because as I've said before on that little TV clip and all, I'm not so sure that people in general in the county recognize everything the library does. I really liked the tweet that Keith Fox put out the other day about all the things you can do in the library or something like that. It was really great, and it's gotten a lot of attention in and out of Fairfax County, frankly, because I retweeted it and others did. Anyway, so that was the only question I had. Other than that, I like the 5. So what other inputs do we have from the from the crew here? Anything? Priscilla, go ahead.
I agree. I like the 5. And my question
Mhm.
was on objective 4. I can see from the other objectives how you would measure that you succeeded in that objective. And I'm not sure, do you have an idea of how you would measure that you succeeded in being recognized?
Yeah, we talked about that, Priscilla, and really about the most logical way to come up with that data is some kind of a survey, whether that's whether that's in connection with like a customer satisfaction survey, which we probably should do this year anyway. But we went back and forth about the best ways to do it. We're just going to have to ask in some ways. We'll do probably definitely online through the website. We'll have to discuss the best ways to get that data, but we figured a survey of users is probably the best way.
I
And
like
then
the survey idea. That's interesting. And I wonder if, just let me interrupt for 1 second and think about a before and after survey. Like you said, we need to do one coming up soon. So make sure there are questions in there that talk about the recognition, and then a year or so downstream, but this is a 5-year plan,
Right.
ask again and see if it's changed. So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry, Priscilla. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's great. And I love that idea too. And then the phrase for community information, I know what you mean by that, but I'm wondering about people who aren't immersed in library, if they think that is, as a center for community information, do you mean the center where community accesses information, or do you literally mean the center for information about a community?
No, it's really both. It's kind of the royal community information, if you will, because we do have both.
Right.
We can certainly
Innovative program.
talk about better ways to specify that it's more than just information about the community being available in the library.
Well, I think clarity will come with the context around the objectives. I mean, these objectives aren't going to be in isolation. So I think that's fine. I was just
Okay.
expressing, trying to be outside of my own thinking or my own perspective in looking at it. But I love the objective as it is, and just wanted to make sure that it was communicating what you intended to.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
May I say something? I not being a librarian, I didn't recognize community information as a perhaps buzz phrase or something, but I looked at it the way I think that would be maybe clarified by saying be recognized as the community's center for information. You know what I mean? Would that help, or do you think that would just confuse things? Where the
I mean, I
community
think
is writ
it
large.
helps. I mean,
Yeah.
that's whatever you guys think works best.
Well, I don't know. Does anybody else
I
have
like-
any concept on this? Suzanne, by community, of course, I mean the county and the cities, which you
Sure.
said before. Yeah. Sue or Sujata. Hi, Sujata. Hey.
Hi there. I'm
I
sorry
see you
to
way
interrupt.
down there at the bottom of the screen.
Brian, I missed what you didn't understand. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Late and
Okay,
not-
we're talking about proposed objectives for goal 1, objective
Uh-huh.
4,
Uh-huh.
where it says be recognized, and we talked about an MOE for that, as the Center for Community Information through the innovative programming, in-depth collections, and responsive services. I think we all like the gist of it. Priscilla asked about the term Center for Community Information. Would that be understood as both the place where you could get information about the community, but also could be the community's Center for Information? And I just suggested perhaps making it clearer by saying as the community's Center for Information through, et cetera. That's all. And I don't have strong feelings either way. I didn't recognize that community information as being any kind of a phrase that would be confusing, but it apparently could be.
Did you think it was confusing? So Priscilla thought it was confusing?
Priscilla, why don't you say?
I didn't necessarily think it was confusing. I just wanted clarity that my assumption that it meant what
Like a
Brian
hub.
was saying, yeah,
a
the
hub.
hub
hub,
of,
yeah.
for a community to access information, that that was what it was meant. And I also said, you know, it's not like the public is just going to get like this document right here. This document is created for our ability to kind of parse through the new information. The public is going to see these objectives in context. So it may be, you know, we don't want to have complex sentences for the objectives. And it could be that just by the surrounding context and explanation or actions that go along with the objective, then it would be clearer. So I wasn't saying that this needed to be necessarily changed. I was just affirming that my assumption as to what the intent was aligned with the intent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
kind of-
agree. I don't see we have to change it. I just suggested we could if we wanted. So, yes.
I kind of like Brian's suggestion because it makes it kind of less jargony. Changing it to the community center for information.
Okay.
But I don't feel hugely strongly about it. I just think that works well too.
Okay.
But the issue then that you run into, if you want to parse like this, is that it's really not the center for all information necessarily, right? It's the center, it is the center for community information, right? What's happening in the community, what events are happening in the community, what resources there are in the community in a lot of ways. But there are some things that, I mean, yeah, you might find it in the library, but there are some things that maybe one would say it's not the center for that.
Well,
I don't if one were to go like that. I don't know.
Using
I like
the-
Center for Community Information because I think I didn't find anything confusing in that. Not that I would find it. I'm sure whichever way you wrote this,
Yeah.
I would understand it that way. So.
Okay. So what do you think, Suzanne?
Yeah, I just think, but you're going on and saying through innovative programming, collections, and responsive services. So to me, responsive services says, if we don't have your answer, we'll find it for you, which is something
That's
that
true.
library information staffs do.
That's true.
Also, for community information, in my view, if one were looking for community information, I would probably tend to go to the supervisor's office or to the government center where they have the whole thing right there in the lobby with community information, as opposed to the library. For the library, I would go for worldwide information. So, you know, I mean, you could argue, in my view, that it can do both, but we aren't the be all and end all for either one, but more so for information beyond the community is my view anyway. So, what do you think?
A lot of people would think that's not the case. A lot of people
Okay.
actually do look for their community information in their community library.
Oh, you think looking
I'm
at
sure
the,
of that
stuff
for
on the
sure. Like,
wall. Okay. Yeah, it could be.
Parents, job
Yeah.
stuff, students go
Yeah.
there to find like, college
All right.
stuff, whatever.
It just depends on what you're looking for and
Yeah,
what your
yeah.
outlook is. Okay.
And depending on how the county works with their strategic plan, partnering with other county agencies and making sure we are a way to help get their information out to the public as well. It might be something that, is another avenue for us to further inform our community.
Sue, you had a comment, I
Yeah,
think?
would there be any benefit in that people can read into it different ways so they can interpret it as they want to interpret it?
True.
It could be the
that's
information
true,
from the
yeah.
community or just a center hub. And then, if they want more clarification, we can give it to them. But
Okay. That makes sense.
I think
I'm
we all
fine with
said that it
leaving it.
sounds fine as it is.
Yeah, okay. Does everybody think that as it is the best way? That's fine.
I like it.
Like it? Okay.
It's
I
fine.
could go either way, Suzanne. Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't we just leave it like that? I appreciate it. Good discussion. Ready to go to goal 2, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
So goal 2 here is our goal to enhance the library experience through expansion, innovation, and integration of technologies. Innovation, of course, is a key theme in the county strategic plan. The staff committee looked at 10 possible objectives for this goal. One of those we considered to include under a different goal, but we also considered 2 edited versions of some of the ones we talked about. And the 3 that got the most support are the ones that you see here.
Mhm. So look for the information.
Objective 1 is part of our current strategic plan, and it's unchanged from what it currently is.
Okay.
So with objective 2, help narrow the digital divide, what would be some of the strategies for doing that? Are we trying to get more laptops that community users can borrow, hotspots, things like that?
That's certainly one. That would probably be done through a grant rather than us spending our own budget doing it. But yes, anything along those lines, whether that's more Chromebooks, whether it's laptops, whether it's tablets, hotspots, for instance, anything that would allow us to help the communities, particularly those of greater need, better connect and lessen that divide is anything we would look to.
And I can speak a little bit to, this is an extension of work that's already going on through the current strategic plan. All the areas that Doug mentioned are accurate, but we're also looking for things that can expand their ability at home and when they're on the facility site. So part of it was the purposeful exterior Wi-Fi that was implemented during the pandemic and is now being expanded by county IT to better connections. And for things like MyFinance and laptops, those were able to be initially funded through the Emergency Connectivity Fund grants offered by the federal government. And as we see the type of utilization that comes out of that, we'll be looking at expanding that as well, knowing that FCPS students already have access to some of those devices and Wi-Fi units for themselves and family members.
Okay. Just a question on that. Are we going to go after other grants?
We may. I'm happy to
We
share
don't have
with
to
you.
say that
in a-
in this.
No, I'm happy to share in a public space that
Mhm.
the larger the grant is and the higher up in a level of government is, the more onerous the original
Of course.
application and reporting is. So, for example, we received emergency connectivity funding in fall of last year, and we are only now able to purchase those devices.
Okay.
So we absolutely want to continue to look for external sources of
Yeah.
fundings to better use the dollars that we
Yeah.
get from the county, but also to move things forward in an expeditious manner.
But that's why these things are so good in the strategic plan. They're fairly, I won't say nebulous, but they're not so specific, like going for grants and stuff like that. We have different ways we can both measure how good we're doing in them, how well we're doing in them, and brain fog again. Good excuse.
No, it's perfect. And
yeah,
it gives,
so-
because we have both library branches and administrative units and our technical operations service center, staff really appreciate when these are drafted in a really broad way so that as they're crafting their individual yearly goals, it's something that they can all see themselves under. So even if like the finance department didn't think like, wow, I'm going to have a lot of impact on technology, they do, because they're helping us write the grants that allow us to implement the end design.
Great. Well, I like all 3. Does anybody else have any comments on any of them? Anyone? No? Well, that sounds good. Good. Let's go to goal 3 then. Thank you, Doug.
Yep. So goal 3, provide diverse services, programs and materials to support literacy development. So the staff committee looked at 16 different objectives for this goal. We revised a number of them. The 3 you see here, the ones that got the most support. Objective 1 is included in our current strategic plan, so we recommend continuing that, as is objective 3, and both of those would be unchanged from what they are now in the current plan. Some of these are so, again, think of it in terms of an inverted pyramid where at the branch and department level, we go from very specific, what each branch or department is going to do, up to the higher levels, which are more broad and then more broad again. So all of these are sufficiently broad so that, as Jessica mentioned, any department, any branch can see themselves providing a service, a resource that could help the system meet these goals.
Okay. I like the three. I had in my mind as I was going through them, I thought, well, there are people who should learn English, and I guess arguably everyone who lives here should, but there are people who don't speak English, and so we have foreign language collections and things that fits into the diverse collection stuff. So I think it's okay the way it is, but I'd love to hear any other comments from anyone.
And also what you just said, Brian, regarding there are people who don't speak English, you may never learn English,
Yeah.
you know, but that's certainly objective 3 covers them, you know,
Yeah.
lifelong learning,
So yeah.
in their own language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Diversity of collection, et cetera, we
Right,
have
right.
three in collections.
And I think that this also gives a lot of latitude, like I just said, gives a lot of latitude to individual branches, individual librarians, individual programs to do things as best benefits particular community members, particular
Yeah.
communities, particular populations within their communities, et cetera, that have different needs.
Right.
Interesting.
I
They
have
also
heard
fit-
lately, just anecdotally, that the English language or ELL people at Burke Center are having trouble finding not people to attend because they're going to restart them, but finding instructors. So,
Yeah.
but it's just anecdotal. Yes,
Same as
Sue,
in
I'm
our
sorry.
schools.
Oh,
you
I
know?
was going to say,
I
I
think-
like objective 2.
Oh,
I'm
good,
glad
good.
it's being focused on.
Good.
They, all of these also tie in really directly to the county strategic plan.
Yeah, I'm
As
sure.
most of our stuff does, we fall under the lifelong learning and education
Right.
community focus area. But that goal, that focus area specifically states that all people at every stage of life are taking advantage of inclusive, responsive, and accessible learning opportunities that enable them to grow, prosper, and thrive. But it also lists under them what success looks like at the county level, and it includes increased English language proficiency and access to early childhood education.
Good.
So again, other ways that we tie directly into what the county is doing, so we can help show the county how well we're helping them meet their goals and their objectives, and then it allows the county to say the same thing and point their finger at us to say, look what the library is doing to help us do that.
Great. Okay, any other comments on goal 3 or any of the objectives they're under? Nope. Let's go to goal 4 then. Thanks.
Okay, so goal 4, prioritize and strengthen connections with our communities, schools, and patrons to create mutually beneficial relationships. This ties in directly to a key county theme in the county strategic plan of collaboration and engagement. The staff committee looked at 19 possible objectives for this goal. Objective 1 is an edited version of a goal that's in our current strategic plan. And I think they, again, similar to goal 3, really help position us to help show how we're helping the county meet its goals, specifically with customer satisfaction, with county services, and inclusive community engagement, which is one of the ways they will measure success for collaboration engagement at the county level.
Mhm. Okay, any comments on these? I note, Sujatha, that outreach is in there. See?
Yeah. I like,
I know. Anyone else?
I mean, I
Suzanne,
think
did you
it's
have
written so
a,
beautifully and welcomingly that
oh, good.
No changes. I think they work very well.
Okay, I thought I saw your hand up.
No, just resting my chin.
Ah,
on my-
got it. Anyone else? No? Okay, that's great. That was easy. I like them. I think they're great.
Okay, great. So our last
Okay.
goal is goal 5, champion workforce development and contribute to economic opportunity for all. This relates back to a discussion you guys had in your very first meeting in January that talked about economic opportunity and job skills development, that kind of thing. It also fits directly into the county strategic plan in terms of economic opportunity and what they view as a way to measure success, looking at things like supporting career-based training.
Mm.
The staff committee looked at 11 possible objectives for this. All of them would be new to our revised strategic plan. 3 of them were viewed as possible objectives for other goals, but kept them in the discussion for this goal.
Yeah.
And the 3 you see there are the ones that got the most support.
Mhm. Okay. I like these. I think it covers the waterfront of economic opportunity, but maybe others see differently.
Could
Any
we
other,
add city into goal, the second
Oh.
one, Doug?
engagement?
Fairfax County and
Oh.
city?
We certainly could, if that's
So
what you
we-
guys would like to do.
Yeah. Is everybody
Well-
else okay with that?
Could
When I
ask-
share them with city people, that's the first
Oh,
thing they're gonna say.
yeah. Sue, I'm sorry. You
Yeah,
had
could I
something?
ask, I love the goals, but have you thought about how this might overlap with other services that other providers are offering? And would that be where you're talking about maybe doing a strategic partnership with those partners?
Yes. And we already do a lot of that, whether it's tax help or English language services, those kinds of things. But this kind of expands that to include things like job skills. And while we do offer things like online job searching or online resume and job application type things, any opportunity we might have, and this may be a partnership to another county agency, for example. There may be something we can do with neighborhood community services or another agency that helps us meet some of these objectives.
Mhm.
So really any type of partnership that presents itself. And the idea would be to kind of set every branch and every department free to look for such things, or just be aware of what might be out there, pay attention to the kinds of emails they get and solicitations they might get to opportunities to partner with other groups.
Okay. I was just wondering if you had partnership with the Workforce Development Board. I think they're called Skill Source.
I'd be happy to speak to that a little bit. So we
Mhm.
do have partnerships with SkillSource and with Bright Paths, who do a lot of work around skill development for folks that are either looking to re-engage in a new employment field or just kind of up their skills. And I would be happy to continue to build on those partnerships. We're actually looking right now at whether or not we can place some of their folks with us for paid internships as they have gone through computer training series where they're certified in, like Microsoft Suite. And I'm not going to try and say acronyms that I don't know what they are. I also wanted to mention, because I think it's a really great point, that there is some real development opportunities here for both community partners and nonprofit partners and even other county agencies to utilize the resources that the library already pays for. Because some of the databases that we provide are a little, they are a pretty penny, as my grandmother used to say. And one good example of that is we're currently partnering with the county's health department, which has about 900 employees, to provide them with library cards so that your staff can use LinkedIn Learning to get some additional continuing education taken care of. And we're happy to do things like that, where we'll do the legwork and make sure that your folks all have cards so they can access the resources, and then you just turn it on over to your employees, because we already have it as a resource for people. We just want to make sure that we expand the reach of who it's getting to.
Yeah, I think that's great. Definitely partnering with others. Yeah, I was just wondering because I think sometimes we all see the need, and when we don't work with one another, sometimes we're trying to provide the same services, but it's just kind of disjointed a little. So, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay. Any other comments on this one? Let me question.
Priscilla,
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Priscilla, it occurs to me too that we could be working with the schools more, maybe on some of the technical programs in the schools. Do we do that at all?
Well, goal 4 talks about partnerships or connections with schools. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
whether we
I'm
wanna-
thinking workforce development. Some of the
Oh,
academy programs are teaching people work skills. And it seems to me, I recall at Fairfax, we've had some students from Fairfax High School who intern in the circ department or have in the past. And just keep in mind that we also could work with the schools on developing opportunities for people to work in the library, I guess.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing to prevent that from happening. Even part of the outreach and awareness, I'm sure that I could do a better job of reaching out more frequently to share the opportunities that the library has for staff as well as students. I don't know that we need to have something called out as an objective, but I think it fits in multiple goals here.
Right.
Honestly, I see schools and, thinking about lifelong learning, we already have partnerships with our early childhood office and the public library and in many ways. So I'm glad to see schools are included in goal 4. And I'm sure we could think of, we have ACE, which is adult community education. And I do wonder a little bit about if there's an opportunity there to connect a little more closely. I know that there's other entry points, but that's one that I think from the county side, they're always looking for partners. So I don't know that if that's been explored before, for example.
But objective 2 under goal 5 does say it's very open, engage in strategic partnerships. So
Yeah.
that would be some, but that's more of an action thing in my view than the strategic plan. I do have a question for either Doug or Jessica, whoever can answer. The geopolitical problems or issues in Fairfax County. Fairfax County and the city of Fairfax certainly have programs that we should strategically partner with or to their success, economic success. What about the other incorporated cities in Fairfax? Should we say in the cities of, Fairfax?
Towns of Vienna, Clifton, and Herndon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should we say that or what?
we collaborate with both the town of Herndon and the town of Vienna on lots of things that come up. Vienna's been a lot easier lately as we work towards a new Patrick Henry Library, and as we collaborated with them for their Liberty Amendments Month. So we do try and it tends to be more local. So the Patrick Henry branch is working with the town of Vienna, and the Herndon branch is working with the town of Vienna or the town of Herndon. We don't do as much with the town of Clifton. I'm not aware of a lot of work that they do beyond planning and development within town parameters. But for the other two, we definitely collaborate with them.
Okay. But
The Virginia Room has worked with the town of Clifton in saving some of their archival materials and providing guidance in some areas. But again, it's like we're talking 200 people.
Okay, but those towns will then fall under the economic success of Fairfax County.
Correct.
And the city of Fairfax. Okay, got it. Okay. I just want to make sure we don't step on someone's toes who isn't in this room right now and have
The towns are part of the county, the cities are not, so.
I know, yeah, and that's
So
and the city of Fairfax is not, but I thought there were others that were not, but I'm fine.
No, so like the town of Vienna has its own economic development employee who supports economic development within town scope, and they've got a downtown business association that we do collaborate with.
Okay, great. So I'm fine with these. Everybody else is okay. Oh, excellent.
I'm
Well, thank
amazed,
you,
Doug,
Doug,
that you shrunk like 16 down to 2 or 3. That's an incredible job.
That's true. I've been writing down on each of them how many they considered, and it was an incredible number. I think they covered the waterfront for us, which is exactly what they were supposed to do. So I appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome. I appreciate the comments. Both goals 4 and 5 are 4 is kind of an adaptation of one of our current goals, but the way it's currently in our current strategic plan is more about age appropriate programming rather than community engagement. So we kind of had an opportunity to look at a wider scope of things. That's why we had so many objectives there. And same with
Mhm.
goal 5. We've never had anything in our strategic plan that spoke to, economic development, economic opportunity, those kinds of things. So it allowed us to really kind of cast a large net for what other systems are looking at and things that would be useful to help the county reach its goals along these lines. So we had some
Mhm.
interesting discussions.
Okay, great. And then finally, you had this comment about the duplication there and the,
Yeah, so at our staff meeting, one of our members mentioned that we've got some similar language in there between 2 of our value statements.
Mhm.
And so the recommendation was to remove that from the learning and innovation value. And so we were just curious to how you guys felt about that and whether that would be okay, or whether you think they're fine the way it is. We didn't
Well,
have a
yeah.
concrete feeling one way or the other. Our interest was more to just make sure you guys had an opportunity to look at it and provide your input regardless of what it is, whether it's to change it or leave it.
Well, my personal feeling is I don't like duplication and things like this if we can avoid it, unless there's a specific reason for it. Like being innovative, you have to look at new tools and techniques, and then you have to train people in it. So that's the learning and innovation. But still, I'm okay with the change. I think it's covered. I think that taking the words introduce new tools and techniques out of that second one doesn't preclude us from including it or including new tools and techniques. That's my feeling. So I'm okay with it, but I'm certainly interested in hearing what others may say about it. Anyone have any strong feelings? No? We're okay with the change? Oh, go ahead, Sujata.
No. I was just like, I just wanted to
Yeah,
read it.
you're
a couple
thinking.
times.
I see you thinking.
I'm sorry,
there.
I'm
I
just
said,
thinking. It's my
Sujata's
thinking
gonna
phase.
say something. That's okay.
As my finger is up for thinking.
Ah, there you go. Okay. All right. Let's read it again.
Can I ask just sort of a broad question? I think that this is fine, but this change. Could we take a moment to discuss whether perhaps in this new paragraph, which I think is, completely fine, that what was taken out of the original one is not, neither here nor there for my question. I want to make sure that it is very clear in our value statement. I like this, we are a skilled professional staff is important, I think, in this current moment, especially when that professionalism is being threatened and questioned all the time. And people without the same kind of training inserting their personal beliefs on top of professional expertise and academic understanding, if that makes sense. So there are people who are threatening that. Do we think as a group that this paragraph can support any other things that we do, decisions that we make, discussions that we have to support our libraries and librarians and our collections from ongoing threats on the horizon as they rise? Is my question clear?
Yeah, I think so. And because that is certainly a threat that we'll face in the next 5 years, I'm sure. We've said it before.
Do I remember there's like an intellectual freedom or some other value statement that's a whole other paragraph?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be, yeah.
Meaning I wouldn't mind necessarily reiteration or I wouldn't even call
me
it
either.
repetition. Yeah, right. I wouldn't call it like yes, repetition, we don't want to be doing that, but reiteration and underscoring, especially now for the next 5 years. Let's say this strategic plan lasts for 5 years. I think the next 5 years are important years to have that underscored, reiterated, bolstered, with lots of bulwark is what I'm saying, to allow us the freedom to protect our collections, our libraries, and our librarians.
I would agree with that. I just think that when I go back and look at the way we had written the innovative and learning and innovation, I think it can be argued that that phrase, we introduce new tools and techniques, isn't the only thing we do to inspire a culture of continuous learning, et cetera, et cetera. See what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm
in
not
other
worried
words,
about the
it's
culture of
not-
continuous learning. The culture of continuous learning is easy to
But do we do
say
it?
that libraries do that. I'm talking about specific threats of people superimposing their personal beliefs on top of professional qualifications to
Well,
curate a collection, etc. That's what I'm kind of talking about.
No,
like
I think
making
I
sure that we
see
have
what
that.
you're saying. My argument is that introducing new tools and techniques doesn't necessarily do that.
Right.
Isn't the only thing to do that, and therefore removing it, I don't think makes any difference. in what
Agreed.
we're
I
saying.
totally
We've got-
agree. Really what
Okay.
it was that like when I'm reading it again,
Mhm.
it's not actually
Yeah,
the question
no.
that Doug asked about this is really not the question I'm addressing. I'm sorry for that. It's just like when I saw the "We are skilled professional staff," which is in the last
Yeah.
one too,
Yep.
it reminded me of something that I think that I want to make sure that we are all like finding as many ways to underscore that as possible for the next several years, so that we
Okay.
have a document to refer back to, because we don't know what the political climate will be and what the support of libraries and freedom of libraries, freedom of information, et cetera. We don't know what's on the horizon for our libraries.
True.
And things happen very fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like once the slide happens, it happens very fast. So I just want to make sure that we have done everything we can to protect our libraries, librarians, and collections as much as we can in anticipation of that.
Okay.
So
I
as many
think we-
places as possible. So yes, introducing new tools and techniques again, taking it out.
Yeah.
I just sort of stuck this question in here
Sure.
because I saw that and it just caught my eye. So it's really not part of the,
Yeah.
I was not supposed to be discussing that. We were supposed to be
No,
discussing
that's
that
fine.
change. I've got no problem with that change. I'm just
Yeah.
like adding
No,
another question.
that's fine.
I'm
And
sorry,
I-
Brian, for being.
No, that's okay. It's a very important thing. And I think when we see them all together, for us here, I mean, I put them next to each other, and I think that it covers that as completely as it can. If there's another phrasing that you think should be added or included or
I don't
whatever
necessarily think
to
that there's
do that,
anything.
that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just like remembering our last month's meeting, our July
Yeah.
meeting, when we had a little
Mhm.
discussion about a book in the collection.
Yeah.
And it seemed that regardless of having similar kinds of wording in strategic plan before, and despite the county goals, the strategic plan of the county, and despite one Fairfax, that there was a member of our board who introduced something without
Yes.
without having taken that into consideration. So I think that a
No.
lot of people, can be loud, proud, strong, and wrong, haven't done their homework, haven't read the stuff, and also have opinions, right? So we have to, we have to expect that people who put their own personal opinions on top of other people's professional expertise would not do their homework, would not read the material, the books, the whatever, but yet will pop off loud, proud, strong, and wrong. So with that in mind, I just want to make sure that we here in thinking about the strategic plan, because Brian, you were excellent at the meeting when you actually did say, and Suzanne also bringing up something from the conference that you went to about we are not allowed to sequester books, et cetera, that all books should be available to everyone. And then Brian, you sort of shut the whole thing down finally by saying, we're not going to do that. That's contrary to ALA guidelines. We will not be doing that because that is contrary to ALA guidelines. And Suzanne had just said that, and none of that was taken into consideration by the board member who just, as though he hadn't heard that conversation.
Yeah, but would it
So-
be taken into, we have to think about that. Would any words that we put out there have been
Exactly.
taken into consideration by people who are, I love your phrase, loud, proud, strong.
Loud, proud, strong,
That's
wrong.
awesome.
And like, I do agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think that any words necessarily make a difference. However, what you were able to do, Brian, and what Suzanne was able to remind us was that despite your not having done the homework, this is in the guidelines, and we will not be doing that because this is in the guidelines. So if we have it in our guidelines, this is our strategic plan. We have it in our guidelines. The fact that you
Yeah.
think something and haven't read the strategic plan, that's on you. However, we are protected by our guiding principles.
And
That's all I'm saying.
what I'm looking at the screen right now, that last sentence in the intellectual freedom and equal access
Yes.
value paragraph, it's flat out states we will adhere. It does, that's unequivocal, right? Like that,
Yeah.
there's no
That's what we're trying to
argument to
say.
say, what does that mean? We will
Mhm.
adhere to professional ethics and standards for public libraries.
Yeah.
And we
And a
have a
lot-
stance
Yeah.
as an entity.
Yeah.
because
The
we will
ALA's
advocate.
Library Bill of
So-
Rights is one thing. I'm sure there are others, and that's why we tried to make this a little more open, I think, is that may be one thing we look at, but there are other things too. So
Yeah.
I agree that we've got it covered, but if as we go on, and we certainly have more discussion to do, not today necessarily, but other times, if there's something very specific we want to say, then we should say it. I agree, Sujata, you're
have it.
right. But, we want to go back, we want to be able to point to something. I think we
Mhm.
have it, but
We have it in several places. We have the same thing
Yeah,
in
yeah.
service oriented. We provide fair, equitable access to information, materials, services, and resources.
maybe just getting the word out is what we need to do. Once we get the strategic
I mean,
plan
right
in,
now, I don't know if it's necessary to like rock the boat. We didn't need to make a new thing as was also mentioned at our meeting. Like, we didn't need to make a new rule, and that's good. We didn't make a new rule. There's no need to do that because the rule is already there. I just want to make sure that we're covered, because I just do see like on the horizon more and more.
Yeah. I agree. I personally think we are covered once we see all these together. If
Yeah.
at that time we don't, or if ahead of time, Sujata, you want to come up with something that maybe we can add or talk about that, or anyone, of course, I think that's great. I think the more specific we are, unfortunately, in a strategic plan, the more we tie the hands of the operators,
Yeah,
Jessica
for
and
sure.
staff, which we don't want to do.
Right.
On the other hand, you're right. We then have something stronger to point to, but that
I think it's
shouldn't
pretty
look-
strong. Like you said,
Well,
it's pretty strong.
Yeah,
It
I
says-
think so. I think so.
And I really like that it says very plainly here, we are a skilled professional staff. That's
Yeah.
really
Oh.
important, that we are
Right.
underscoring as a board,
Yeah.
that we have faith in the professionalism of our staff.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I agree with that 100%. I think going back very quickly to the question that Doug had, I believe that the change that the staff suggests is fine. It's fine with me. Is anybody actually against that change of taking out that phrase, the reiteration of the tools and techniques? Okay. Okay, so that's good. And I really do appreciate, Sujata, all of your discussion on this, because I think it's very important to look ahead. I mean, I'm the chair now, but I'm not going to be forever, for certainly. God help me. And somebody else will be, and who knows who. But they have to be willing to work within our guidelines and point out that there is really no flexibility in certain areas. Banning, the questioning, that just doesn't happen. And I think so. We have to look forward to future boards and future board chairs and so on to continue that, but we have to give them the guidance and the framework within which to do it. And I think this is working, but if it's not, let's make a change. So anyway.
Now, you
Okay.
guys haven't seen the narrative yet either. We're still working on
No.
that. And there are some things that are going to be emphasized in the narrative. We have them as values. We may have them as goals and
Yeah.
objectives, but they'll be further kind of emphasized in the narrative that we weave around all the
Yeah.
guiding
Well,
principles.
freedom of or intellectual freedom, absolutely, I would think has to be in there. So let's hope it is. I can't imagine you writing
Yes.
it without that, but that absolutely has to be something we look at, in my view.
So timing wise,
Yes.
Doug, can you confirm, is it just the narrative at this point that this committee needs to review? So if we
That's
schedule
correct.
a meeting for some time in September, while
be
staff can, maybe after your board meeting in the middle of September, then it's likely that we'll have a finished draft product for consideration at your October board meeting and for approval at November, which gives us plenty of time before it needs to be effectuated January 1st.
Okay, as a consideration item then in October is what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Is it possible, well, I'm sure it's possible, but would it make sense to, when you present us the introduction, to also present us with everything? In other words,
Yes.
here's the introduction in the context of all of these things, so we can look it over. I mean, again, I can look it over in all my pile of notes here, but that isn't to say that I got it right. So I
Oh,
think
yeah, the
that would
way you
help
have,
us.
the way I presented it is different than the way you're going to see it when it's actually
Oh, yeah.
in the plan and the way we organize it.
Yeah. Okay. But I'd like to see that whole plan as soon as possible with the introduction up front. Does everybody agree with that? Would that help us in our September meeting to see that and say, okay, now I'm going to sit down with this as though I haven't been on this committee. And now I'm going to go through it as a board member, as a potential future board chair, whatever. I need to understand that it covers everything I need. And then we can come up with perhaps little nits and ticks. Okay.
Similar
good?
to the annual report, we
Yeah.
try and present the final document as something that you all will see as a final presentation.
Yep.
So that you'll get the full picture of it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And I do think too that getting, marketing this eventually, once it's written and approved by the board, is very important. We have to tell not only board members as they come on board and perhaps as they exist over time, and the public to that these are our views and this is our framework and this is what we're doing. This is where we're heading. And just so you know, we're not going to. I mean, we can entertain. There's always somebody going to say something about something. There was an individual who emailed me and wanted 3 to 5 minutes or something to chat about our policies, and I said, we do policy stuff and all board things at board meetings. You're welcome to speak in the September one. It's coming up. Feel free. I haven't heard back. I don't know. He probably thinks I'm blowing him off, but I don't mind talking with people on a one-to-one basis, but I don't want to talk from people I don't know who want to talk about generic policy things. Yes, I'm not going to do that myself. I want to do it in a meeting, in a public forum where we can talk to people and say, this is what we're doing. Now you tell us your information, he tells us, and then we take consideration or not. So anyway, that's just the way I feel about it, but everybody's a different person. So, okay. All right. Any other questions or options? Okay, let's set up a September meeting, if you don't mind, find the dates. And Doug, I'd like to see the whole thing with the introduction up front. And again, it can be in 2 pieces. Here's the introduction. Let's talk about it. Here's the whole thing. Let's make sure it all fits together. Okay.
Can I just really
Yes,
quick
ma'am.
to the end here? Maybe Priscilla has dealt with this, but probably on the board, maybe Jessica, Priscilla, and I might be the only people who've actually had these kinds of things like lobbed at them. But I
Yeah.
wanted to say on the public meeting that you all may know that this happens to me all the time, but like it seems to be ramping up kind of a false narrative regarding support. Support literally, quote, pederasty, quote, pedophilia, and it's like ramping up using the specific books that we know are under question here. And I think that all of us as board members have to be I think it's really smart, Brian, for you to say we should be having this conversation in public meeting as opposed to engaging individually at this point. I think that it's maybe dangerous for us to do that. I am now feeling that kind of personal threat that when people are making specific allegation at you, which is among the worst possible things that people can say, it is, and then because of libraries and librarians, right? So
Yeah.
that's really, and school teachers, honestly. So that idea that if people are contacting us or talking to us and specifically questioning our position with libraries and wanting to talk about this issue, that's often where it's going. You know what I mean? Unless it's in full support, as we had a speaker last month who was in full support of the work that libraries have done.
Yeah.
Unless it's in support, it's really quite a vile attack against us personally for supporting.
Yeah, but I want to see him do it and stand up in public in a public recorded meeting and say it. If they're willing to do that, I'll listen to them whether or not I agree.
Yeah.
If they're not willing to do that, it's just BS, if you don't
And
mind.
I'm really glad that you said that, because I often feel like personally just sort of a responsibility to speak to people. I mean, I give away way too much of my time that way, and now
Yeah.
I'm stopped. I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Don't do
because
it. Yeah.
it's dangerous. It has
I mean, you're
become
welcome
really
to do it if you
dangerous.
want, but don't do it.
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
not.
feel
I'm
you
not going
have
to. I'm glad to hear that you said come speak to the board, because it does become quite threatening to have people say
Oh,
those specific
absolutely. I
things
don't.
to you. You know.
I want
So
to
I
be
just
yelled
wanted to
at.
say that publicly, that I think it's a
Oh,
great
okay.
idea to just go ahead and say it so we can all. So, and it's also inappropriate. You know, if we're a board, you know, it's inappropriate for me to be talking
Right.
about things like that are policy
Right.
issues, collections issues myself. I
Yeah.
don't have any authority
mean-
over any of that myself. So.
And one of the reason is, that see, when somebody talks to an individual, especially me as the chair, he wrote to me as the chair, right? So he thinks I have certain amount of power, right? So if I'm talking to him and I go, oh, yeah, that's whatever, he thinks I am agreeing with him.
Exactly.
And I can't make those agreements. Number one, I can speak for the board in some ways, but I can't say what the board will do. So it just leads to the same kind of confusion that people who don't look at our plans and don't know what the library bill of rights is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, for a variety of reasons make. So why make mistakes? You come to us, you talk to us as a group, and we'll see what you say. I know we can't respond. That bothers me a little bit, but then again, it's not so bad. I don't want to get into an hour-long screaming match with some dude up there at the podium. So I don't know. That's just my view. But.
Well, I appreciate your sort of tacitly giving me that permission, because I do sometimes feel this compulsion to I should obligation, I should say compulsion, obligation that, it's my responsibility. And it's just not. Just not.
I know. I mean, we still do have an obligation, obviously, to our supervisors, to our constituents within our supervisory areas. So I try to answer them unless it has to do with board policy. That has to be in public and in front of the board, in my view, right? Am I right there as a board, Jessica?
You don't have to. So if someone was asking, what is your policy? That's something you can always direct people to, or you can ask staff.
Certainly,
to
yeah.
respond to.
But he wanted to talk
Queries
about
amending policies. You can
That's what he
certainly talk them through the process and then invite them to a board meeting. You can start a conversation if you'd like, but it is maybe best practice to ask them to do it in a public space so that it's available to all your colleagues, and so that there's no opportunity to not have policy discussions in the public forum.
Right. And to have misunderstanding because
Absolutely.
you've done it. And then now all of a sudden you got people saying, oh, I talked to the board chair and he thinks.
Yeah.
People
Well,
are
there's-
recording. Also,
Yeah, and there's
recording.
lots of different types of topics. We've, the library's modified hours start today. And there've been lots of questions
that's
about
right.
why and when will a change be made and when will it go back. Those are ones where it's certainly eminently reasonable to respond in writing or to direct it to staff, because we've already got template language we could use. But things that should be publicly discussed, like policies, like the strategic direction,
Strategic plan.
board, that should always be done in a public space.
Yeah, agree. Okay, great. Thank you, Sujata, by the way.
Well, thank you so much.
Sure. Anybody else have anything today? Okay, well, I will hopefully recover from this COVID thing. I will put my mask back on. My wife keeps busting my chops saying, now I'm going to catch it. I can't afford to catch it. I said, I'm doing my best, isolating. Yada, yada.
I didn't know you had COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I only sent the thing out to a few people, but I just said, just so you know.
well, are you feeling okay?
Huh? Not too bad now. I wasn't feeling great. And I it's one of those things where you have a bad cough last week, and I said, watch out. So I wore a mask in the branch when I was there, but I just didn't feel right. So I finally took a test, and I'll be darned if one of them it was one of those barely negative, barely positive. So I said, well, crud, I'm going to take a second test because CDC says to, right? So it was totally negative. I said, well, so now what do I do? So I sat around for about a day, and I said, I still feel crummy.